Good evening and welcome to the North Rose-Wolcott Board of Education meeting tonight. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin tonight with the approval of the agenda. A motion, please, to approve the agenda. John and Linda. Any discussion? All in favor? The motion is carried. Tonight we have some presentations. Mr. Pullen, I'll turn the podium over to you and you can make the introductions.
Okay,
please.
thank you, Mrs. Collier. I know we're supposed to have a student presentation tonight. At this point in time, she's not here, so I'm going to ask our elementary team, led by Mrs. Hake, to start off, and then if our student presenter comes, we'll introduce her at that point in time. I'm hoping that everything's all right with her because she's an exceptional young lady. I want to thank Miss Rupp for selecting her because I think that the board will want to hear from one of our stellar fifth graders. But Ms. Hake, I'm going to invite you and your team to come on up and let's get it started.
Good evening. The elementary school is here to present our school improvement plan for the 2024-2025 school year. As a school leadership team, we collaborated to work on our strategies and our goals to support all of the students, 3PK through 12 at NRW. With me tonight, I have Assistant Principal Ben Stopka, second grade teacher Jordan Bratt, second grade teacher Lindsay Roberts, first grade teacher Patty Weber, third grade teacher John McIntyre, our instructional coach Megan Penikoff, and a fourth grade teacher Miss Mason.
So our school improvement goals are really designed to support the district's mission and vision. We want to make sure that our elementary students are getting a strong start on their future path that encourages learning and cultivates individual potential.
Commitment number 1 says we will provide professional development that focuses on student needs in order to build the capacity for our teachers and staff to improve outcomes for all students. Key strategy number 1 states we will create a professional development plan that is focused on differentiation, consistent teaching practices, and student engagement. At NRWE, our professional development plan includes a month-by-month focus. During the month of October, PD focused on reflection and goal setting and preparation of parent-teacher conferences, as well as creating welcoming and affirming classroom environments using restorative practices. Professional development opportunities are differentiated throughout the year as well to meet the needs of our teachers. These opportunities are offered both synchronous and asynchronous. So far this year, teachers have engaged in book studies, listened to educational podcasts, and participated in professional learning communities during the school day and outside of our contractual obligations. After participating in professional development, teachers complete a reflection. The reflection process allows teachers to describe how they can apply what they learn to daily practice and express what they need. In addition, an instructional coach is provided to all teachers. I meet with mine weekly. Key strategy number 2 says administration will be visible in classrooms and provide actionable feedback. To achieve this, leverage leadership is designed to coach teachers and improve the learning outcomes for students. Walkthroughs will be consistently implemented. Building principles are visible in hallways and in classrooms throughout the day. And learning at NRWE is informed by data, so pacing checklists will be consistently implemented and reviewed throughout the year. Key strategy number 3 says, we will provide targeted instruction to students dependent on their need and ability. To achieve this, NRWE has implemented iReady. This personalized learning tool is designed to meet the students where they are as they are. Training and instructional practices will be provided to teachers throughout the year to ensure consistency, differentiation, and progress monitoring. Students receiving an intervention will get a report sent home each quarter. And lastly, Datamate and training assessment practices will be provided to teachers to ensure rigor, consistency, and alignment to the New York State assessments. The Datamate system provides educators with a comprehensive program for analyzing assessment data and improve instructional alignment and student achievement.
Commitment number 2 states we will increase opportunities for family and community involvement in decision-making processes in order to build relationships between staff, students, and families. As a lifelong community member, I feel it is important for all stakeholders to have a voice in the decisions that are being made within our school district. Without building these relationships, we won't grow and learn successfully together. Key Strategy 1 states we will provide all families with resources and events to ensure a successful start to the school year. This year, all orientations were held on the same day, allowing families with multiple students in the elementary building a chance to meet their teachers and see each of their classrooms. We had a great turnout for this event, and students felt successful navigating their way to their class on the first day of school. Our parent liaison is helping to connect all families with Parent Square so they receive communication from the building and district level. Key Strategy 2 states we will provide opportunities for parents and families to participate in meetings that allow for engagement and decision-making processes. The first parent liaison meetings were successfully held in September and October. We hope to see the number of participants grow each month. We will invite 3 to 4 parents to be a part of the student safety team and Cougar Pride team so they can have more involvement in our decision-making processes. We also had parent volunteers in the building helping students at the Scholastic Book Fair in October. Some fun things that were planned for Fall Fun Day, which was held on October 1st, were students having their faces painted in the classrooms and participating in scavenger hunts. We had a number of volunteers in the building for this event too, and they supported students and staff to ensure we had a fun and safe event. And Key Strategy 3 states we will communicate with families regarding important information using their preferred method. So this includes sending out a family survey in the preferred language. It includes identifying the student's primary home language and having a point person for consistent communication. Additionally, we communicate with families via Parent Square and regularly make positive phone calls home.
So our third commitment is we are committed to providing a welcoming and affirming environment that fosters effective communication and meets students' social and emotional needs and promotes cultural competence. Key Strategy 1 states, we provide students with strong Tier 1 instruction focused on socially emotional awareness. And one way we do this at NRW is through our morning meetings. We have morning meetings built into every teacher's schedule, and it starts with students gathering in a circle and providing the opportunity to express their individuality. And this creates a welcoming and affirming environment for students where they all feel included. Teachers also begin the day by greeting students at their doors. We have greeters in the hallway and also greeters that greet students when they get off the buses. The mental health team, such as school counselors and psychologists, they check in consistently with our students. They also provide curriculum to help regulate students' socially emotional needs. This also assists students in goal setting, and one way that we're able to do this is through a program called Second Step. This is a Tier 1 program that students receive in their classrooms from a school counselor.
Student success is celebrated at our school-wide Cubbies Club Assembly. At this assembly, the Student of the Month Award recognizes students who demonstrate the trait of the month. Additionally, this year we have added the Mathlete Award, which recognizes student achievement in math, as well as the Possum Reader Award and an award given by our special area teachers. These assemblies are now building-wide to promote unity across the school building, and we have increased student involvement during these assemblies as well. There are also daily opportunities for students to receive Cougar Pride Awards over the announcements.
The Cougar Pride Award allows teachers to recognize students who are demonstrating the character strengths of be kind, be safe, be where you belong, and do your best on a daily basis. We also have implemented a school-wide book study for students. This year as a building, we read the book The Magical Yet. This story helps students connect goal setting and working toward a goal, even though they might not be able to do it just yet.
Key strategy number 2, provide guidance and build understanding around office referrals and crisis call data sheets to increase consistency. We've been focusing on providing professional development around restorative practices. This assists teachers in understanding the whole child and meeting them where they are as they are. And one of the things that we did over this past superintendent conference day was we all took a training around around restorative practices, and this was done through Peaceful Schools.
Both the Cougar Pride and Safety teams have reviewed discipline data as well. Student data has been reviewed and next steps have been discussed. Specifically, discussions have centered around ensuring that we code discipline concerns consistently. Monthly, time is given at each faculty meeting to reflect on discipline data. We have used scenarios as a means to discuss best practices and to plan for the future.
Key strategy number 3 states provide Tier 2 and Tier 3 students with additional support to meet their social and emotional needs. This year at our building, we added a coordinator of behavior services at the elementary school, and this person serves as a point of contact to support our students and our families. Additionally, we've been fine-tuning our check-in and check-out process. Students who have been identified as needing some social and emotional support or just in need of forming some relationships with adults will be enrolled in check-in and check-out. The goals are set for the students by the students, and they check in with their adult in the morning and they check out with their adult in the afternoon to see if their goals were met.
We're also pleased to have the Cougar Care Room this year at the elementary school. Students who may be having a difficult day can go to the Cougar Care Room and regulate their emotions, prepare to restore the relationship with their teacher and their peers, and then re-enter the classroom. This helps students return to the classroom as quickly as possible and maximize their instructional time in the classroom.
We're now going to present you with our data coupled with our academic and behavioral goals that we set as a school this year. This year we implemented iReady for grades 2 through 4, and coming the spring we'll include kindergarten and first grade in that assessment as well.
So this is the data from our Fall iReady Diagnostic Assessment at grades 2 through 4 in math. The green bar shows students on or above grade level. The yellow bar shows students 1 grade level below, and the red is 2 or more grade levels below. Math is a focus area for our school this year. We're being proactive and we're taking steps to improve the foundational understanding of students, including their number sense fluency and application of strategies. We're working toward this consistency vertically through professional developments from the instructional coach and math interventionist, participation in the math cadre through BOCEs, and the addition of a math win time in all schedules. Math win, or what I need, is a dedicated time at each grade level when students who need a math intervention work with the interventionist. This extra block in our schedule gives classroom teachers time to further differentiate their instruction with the other students, meet with small groups or individuals, and provide reteaching on skills that their students have not yet mastered. We have made some instructional shifts as well in math this year. Grades 1 through 4 are consistently using Zern as a Tier 1 program in math. We've used Zern as our curriculum at grades 1 through 4 for several years now, giving teachers a lot of freedom to implement it in their classrooms the way they would like. This year, we're just asking classroom teachers to use Zern in a more consistent way so we can clearly see if the program is working for our students. We also added iReady Pathways as a means of personalizing instruction for students in an engaging way. Datamate's another option for all grade levels, but it's specifically at 3rd and 4th grade right now as a way to develop computer-based testing strategies. Currently, we're developing quick 5-question assessments at 3rd and 4th grade for math, ELA, and science using Datamate and release test questions from the state. One reason computer-based testing in math is especially challenging is because students just rarely have opportunities to solve math problems on the computer using the format that the state is using, so DataMate is solving that problem for us. We've also created an elementary school math committee. This is to dig deeper into programming, researching other options for math programs, and determining what we're looking for as a school for our math instruction. We plan on visiting other school districts to see what's working in our area in schools that have similar demographics. We feel relieved that our district is taking the time to properly evaluate our current instructional needs and also learn about what other options are available for us. We're just not jumping to another curriculum because of test scores not being where we want them. We have materials from different curriculums. We'll be able to pilot at least a unit from several grade levels when we do narrow down the focus to the programs that we like. It's also important to note that our students in 2nd and 3rd grade have never sat for a computer-based assessment like the one on the screen. We're implementing a school-wide shutdown for each diagnostic assessment that we give, so students are now understanding what a testing environment truly is. We're also using the proctors and locations that students would actually have for a state assessment so they can feel a little bit more comfortable in that situation, which can be really stressful for some kids. Right now you don't have kindergarten and 1st grade data up here because they are using AimsWeb as their diagnostic assessment as well as their progress monitoring tool, but we are piloting iReady with them in the spring. Our building, K4, will make the full transition to iReady for next school year. This is the data from our fall iReady diagnostic assessment at grades 2 through 4 in reading. So we're actually very, very, very proud of the progress our students have made in reading, as you can see. We have consistently used Collaborative Classroom for our Tier 1 instruction, as well as the SIPS intervention for the past 5 years. At each grade level, we have about half of the students performing 2 or more grade levels below where they should be, according to their first iReady assessment. We're continuing to make positive growth by refining our practices. We know that many of those students are actually reading on grade level, but they may not be performing well on a diagnostic assessment, so we're incorporating iReady pathways to fill some gaps in learning and to personalize instruction. We're utilizing DataMate as well in grades 3 and 4 as a test preparation tool, enabling students to have more computer-based testing practice that they have not been exposed to in the past. We're also continuing the research-based practices that have led to our improved reading levels, such as our Tier 1 instruction, strong reading interventions, the use of digital tools like CommonLit, and including additional training for all teachers in the science of reading. CommonLit's an online resource where teachers can assign readings with multiple choice questions and short response questions. And the digital tools like a highlighter or the enlarging the font actually mirror the state assessment really nicely. A major addition that our building has had this year is a computer science class being offered for all students in UPK through 4th grade. Students will become digital citizens, fluent in operating the Chromebooks and the technology tools, and more comfortable overall navigating computer-based assessments. We will provide a more thorough update in the spring as we continue to develop this curriculum throughout the school year that our students will be provided with to have what they need in order to be successful later in life.
So this is our exciting data to share. So this graph shows students, this was in September, at each grade level who are reading books at or above their grade. So this is saying that in September, the first month of school, 53% of our kindergartners were reading books. Not just sight words, not just letter sounds, but books in a group with their teacher and understanding what they've read. So 62% of our 3rd graders were reading books at or above a 3rd grade level with a teacher, not just being able to physically read it, but also to understand and have deep discussions about what they have read. And the yellow shows that they're just 1 year below, and then the red would show that they're 2 or more years. So if it's 62% 3rd graders are reading at or above, 24 are reading at a 2nd grade level. And this was September, and we've seen a lot of growth since then. And this is the first year we've really showed our kindergarten data, or the highest amount of students that we've had reading books in kindergarten. And when we look at the data, 98 to 99% of these students attended our UPK program. here at NRWE. So we're really proud of the progress that they're making and our youngest learners being in our building. So we know we have a lot of work to do, especially on computer-based assessments. You know, we have 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10-year-olds, and computers are newer to them, are taking assessments on those computers. And only about a third of our students take the New York State tests, or maybe a little less. So this data is really important to us. If you were to walk into our elementary school on any day, on a Monday through Friday, this is what you would see. You would see these students at their tables, reading with their teacher, reading with their peers, and talking about texts and really understanding what they read. So to us, when we as elementary staff look at data, this is one of our most important data points. This is a true read into our younger primary learners and what their abilities are.
So the graph on the screen shows the data for the New York State math assessment. This data shows the amount of students who were proficient in the New York State assessment. So for the 2022-2023 academic year, current fourth graders scored 21% proficient, while current fifth graders scored 30% proficient. For the 2022-2023 academic year, the scores for the current fifth graders were lower, which shows an increase from the previous year, showing growth. To increase New York State math proficiency by 10%, we're focusing on a couple things. So one thing is increased focused instruction. Students will have an hour dedicated for math, not only for third and fourth grade, but across all grade levels, allowing for deeper engagement with key concepts. Data-driven learning is important, so using the iReady pathways, we will assess each student's level and then tailor lessons to meet their specific needs, ensuring for targeted instruction. Test practice integration has been improving a lot, so our pacing guides now include regular state test practice. We'll focus on multiple choice and short response questions through practice assessments created through DataMate to prepare students for testing format throughout the year. DataMate will also be used to create 5 multiple choice questions to be answered in each ZERN end of mission unit to continue practice on questions that will be seen on the state test. DataMate will also be used once a week in third and fourth grade starting in January for continued practice in math and ELA. And then we also have targeted interventions and our math win time. For students who need extra help, we'll provide additional support and interventions focusing on specific math skills to prevent gaps from widening. This chart is now going into the New York State ELA assessment for the amount of students who were proficient. We still have the same goal. We want to increase New York State ELA proficiency scores by 10% for each grade level cohort. So in 2023 to 2024 academic year, the current fourth graders scored 29% proficient, while the current fifth graders scored 30% proficient. But for the 2022-2023 academic year, the scores for the current fifth graders were lower, which shows an increase from the previous year, showing growth again. For ELA, we're also targeting that 10% proficiency increase by focusing on specialized instruction for ELA test prep. So for in fourth grade this year, we are departmentalized. We've also seen a decrease in behaviors, which shows that we are able to maximize our whole instructional time. So the Making Meaning teacher, which is our reading instruction through Collaborative Classroom, is going to be focusing on the multiple choice question skills, helping students improve reading comprehension. And then our writing teacher is going to focus on those long and short response questions, so develop students' writing abilities for the state exams. And with that writing portion, our computer science teacher has been working a lot with our students on helping them navigate the keyboard through our typing club, which is our practice with their keyboard skills. The iReady personalized reading instruction supports reading growth. We're using the pathways to assess students and provide customized lessons based on their current reading levels. This approach ensures each student receives the right support in comprehension, vocabulary, and other key literacy areas. These pathways focus on specific reading skills such as comprehension, vocabulary, and phonics, tailored to their individual learning needs. We also are able to move them if we think that they need to relearn something, or if they are passing with flying colors, we can move them up. Consistent test practice. So as with math, our pacing guides for ELA include regular practice with multiple choice and short response. This ensures students are familiar with the test format and can improve over time. We still use the Common Lit, like Ms. Pentecost said. And we also are using the data mate. Intervention support in ELON is just like in math, targeted reading interventions will provide the students who need extra help, ensuring that no one is left behind. For students who need extra help, we'll provide additional support focusing on specific ELA skills to prevent gaps from widening, and we differentiate a lot of those for our students because we are trying to meet them where they are. Like I said, the computer science is used a lot during our writing and small reading groups because they're using those resources to kind of help practice and support them. They use that typing website that allows them to practice their typing skills as well as their keyboard skills.
So in addition to the academic data that's been presented by the team, we're also closely monitoring our behavioral data as well. So whereas the academic data gives us a measure of progress against a learning standard, our behavioral data gives us a lens to make sure that we are creating an environment that is conducive to teaching and learning at the elementary school. So here our goal is again to reduce our office disciplinary referrals by 10%. So to do so, we're really launching a multifaceted approach, some of it internal and some of it external. So we're working really closely with our internal team, our staff, our school leadership team, our mental health team, and everybody to make sure that we have a very strong system of multi-tiered supports available to students so that we can respond to needs quickly as they arise in school. In addition to that, we're working very hard to develop restorative practices and develop relationships between our teaching staff, our students, and our families, and just the community in general. We've seen a tremendous turnout in each of our events this year, so we're already seeing the beginnings of very strong positive relationships that way. And in addition, we're also building really strong relationships with some of our external partners. So for instance, the youth advocacy program or Wayne Behavioral. You know, we have a ton of people now who are bringing a diverse set of skills to the table that allow us to, again, respond to needs as they arise and bring a really dynamic picture to our office disciplinary system in general.
Just a comment that you certainly are covering all the important areas for our students in terms of academics and the monitoring you're doing, but also the things you're speaking to for their mental health and their feeling of belonging. Thank you.
Linda, I have a question. Cinda, wrong person. You've actually been talking a lot about restorative practices. I know I said your name wrong too. It's okay, Cinda. So I'd just be curious, what's an example, just for me who's not in a classroom, right? What is an example of a restorative practice?
So a quick example that would come to mind would be a conflict that arises between two students in a class, right? So we know that primary learners really, you know, they can escalate quickly in terms of like the verbal back and forth that can rise. So you think of a situation of how that would have been handled many years ago. It may have been quashed and you know, squished quickly by a teacher and just kind of keep going. You know, we're going to keep the foot on the pedal and we're going to go forward. Where restorative practice is going to look a little bit deeper. It's going to try to find a space where that teacher can get those students out away from the external stimuli that may be driving the divisiveness of the conflict and open up a space for mediation. So as opposed to the teachers just squashing it, shush, we need to be quiet, we need to move on to question 3. It's about stepping maybe into the hallway for a minute to have that conversation, to help students develop the self-regulation skills that they need to recognize not only what their triggers may be, but how their actions or words are impacting others around them. So it restores a sense of trust and unity with the students who are then reintroduced to the school. So that would be a low-level example. At the higher level, you know, our crisis team, you know, we see so many different things come into play at the elementary level, and some of them are not always great. So having the ability to have a well-versed mental health and crisis team, or a team that's well-versed in restorative practices, allows us to really provide a path to healing for a student that allows them to not only maybe address some of the external issues that are driving their frustrations or their challenges, but allow them to really acclimate and become a member of that school community and become involved and just restore their whole sense of belonging.
Which could just be changing your language. So if a student, there's a discipline issue, instead of coming at the student saying, why did you do that? Your first question is, what happened? So that approaches the student, gives them an opportunity to openly discuss, say what happened. You can kind of dig deeper into the why and how to prepare that. So it's even just sometimes as simple as changing your language when you're talking to students.
I can add on to that too, something common in second grade. Students will do something accidentally, kick another student, or they trip another student, and they don't stop to think to say, I'm sorry. So just pulling those two students aside, having that conversation, was it an accident? Yes. And you need to give an apology. Let's fix that and repair it and move forward. So that's something very common that we see on a daily basis.
Thank you. That's great. It's kind of the why behind, instead of just the discipline, why is it even necessary? I appreciate that.
Just for my completeness, I forgot. On one of your charts, you have the word sets. I missed what you said when you were explaining it. So what is a set?
So a set is a book that's on their level. So we used to use Lexiles or write the F and Fontes and Pinnell levels. They were a level L or they were an N. Well, a set goes with our Science of Reading program. So if somebody's a set 5, right? A set 5 is a beginning first grade set. Set 6 and so on and 7. And then as they get higher in the sets, they become more like book clubs where the students are having those conversations. So it's really just another way to say a level without having a level. It's more of a Science of Reading approach to it. And there's a whole set of different various books in each numbered set, 1 through 13, that could be nonfiction or fiction.
I am familiar with that. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much. That's very, I'm very pleased to see such individualization going on.
Thank you, Mrs. Hake and team. So, Mrs. Collier, rest of the Board of Education, I'm pleased to announce that our superstar, Miss Fiona Mallow, did make it in. So while Crystal gets her ready to come on up to present to you, I'm going to brag on Fiona a little bit. She just moved back from California this year. As I said at the beginning, she's one of our 5th grade students. It's nice to have Miss Rupp highlight that she excels in reading and math. She loves science and all the hands-on activities that are going on. She's artistically inclined. She loves music. She loves playing Minecraft and Legos, and we're really excited to have her here. So welcome, Fiona. How are you doing tonight? Do you want to speak here? Let me give you the mic, okay? If you don't mind, just look out to them, okay? You don't need to grab it.
Yep, just let it will talk, yep, perfect, just stand right there, you don't need to touch it.
Hello, my name is Fiona Malo. I am a 5th grade student in North Rose-Wolcott Middle School. I have autism, which makes some things a little hard for me. I've been here for about 10 weeks. I'm excited for what can happen in quarter 2. I like how nice the teachers are with me. Sometimes it is hard when I am told to do work that I do not like. One thing I am looking forward to is after-school activities like different clubs. Another thing I like about middle school is when I get rewards for doing my job the right way. I hope to have a great school year.
Thank you. Fiona, I can relate to that. I don't like doing things when I'm told to do them either, so thank you. Are there any questions for Fiona from our board? Any comments?
Fiona, great job. And I'm sure that your principal and your family are very proud of you. You're very nice.
Yeah.
Great job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're so happy you're here with us, and we just love your enthusiasm. How wonderful.
Which is the one up So that's a tough act to follow. I do.
Do you dance,
I do.
Mr.
I pirouette, you know,
Oh.
but I'll claim a back injury tonight. So I want to just go through a couple of quick things for you. There's 3 things for tonight's presentation. I was asked to give a highlight from what we presented down at New York City at the School Board Association training that we attended in October. So keep in mind that was an 8-hour training that we had to condense to an hour training. Now I have to condense it into a 10-minute or less training. So I'm going to go at a pretty good clip, but I am going to cover some of the things that we've done with respect to our school district and some things that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in. I'm going to highlight for our board and our community budget factors heading into 2025-26 planning, and then I also want to offer congratulations to a few members of our school district. So first and foremost, Dr. Matt Morali and I presented on reducing risk and creating safer workplace and school environments down in New York. There's 3 things that I say drive what we do as a school district when it comes down to our overall safety plan. And in short, it's preparedness, prevention, and protection. Those 3 things drive everything we do as decision makers. And again, please stop me if I'm going too fast, but I'm just going to give you the highlight. And if you want me to elaborate, don't hesitate to interrupt. But preparedness really talks about what are we doing beforehand. All the steps, all the activities we take to ensure that if something ever happens, we're well versed and we're prepared. You know, whether it's a health emergency, it's a lockdown activity, training our staff, and then assessing our effectiveness, and then meeting on a monthly basis with our schools, building safety teams as well as our district safety team. Prevention really comes down to everything that we need to make sure that we're doing, that you heard the elementary team refer to, whether it's the restorative conversations where it's reaching out and having interventions through YAP, whether it's having the mental health support teams, the SPOA, the things that we're talking about, ensuring that our policies are up to date, ensuring our practices are proactive, and making sure that we have a very active involvement with local law enforcement. With respect to protection, this is the last phase. This is the one that we hope we never have to get into. This is when an actual event occurs. This is when we take it to a whole different level. This is stuff that, again, you know, we spend a great deal of time every fall preparing our district-wide staff for Stop the Bleed. We do the sextortion training. We do a lot of things with our mental health. We work diligently with our school resource officers, and we prep our people continuously in the reunification process, and whether or not there's an actual event that we have to invoke these things. With respect to why we do this, all too often you hear that won't happen here. It's a rural school district. It's a small community. I know the students that go here. I know the families. That would never happen here at North Rose-Wolcott. That normalcy bias is when people plan ignorance or feign that they just won't happen here. Well, unfortunately, in this day and age, we have to prepare that it could happen anywhere. So we really do a lot of work to combat normalcy bias. School safety, it's everyone's responsibility, must be our #1 priority. When it comes down to the number of groups that we work with, here's a graphic representation of all the different thoughts and all the different entities that have to go into a well-designed plan and a well-executed plan. When I stood in New York, one of the things that I said, on top of being proud of being the superintendent here, very proud of our community, very proud of the agriculture, was really being proud to work for a board of education that doesn't ask how much will it cost. You ask, do we have enough? I'm very proud to have a very direct and collaborative relationship with Sheriff Milby, who I consider to be a very forward-thinking, proactive sheriff. I've said it before, you've seen him here at meetings. It's really comforting to know that that gentleman takes into account that there are 11 school districts, 12 if you consider BOCES, and he wants the best trained police officers that he has in each of those school districts, and he wants a uniform approach for law enforcement and educators. This is just a glimpse at the number of partnerships that we have, and I think I have 25 of them listed there when it comes down to protecting our school. With respect to the incidents and the harm prevention threat management model that we employ here, you'll see that there are 3 primary factors that are critical when it comes down to recognizing the potential for a casualty, a mass casualty, or a violent incident. It's bullying, it's the depression with suicidal thoughts, and then it's the access to firearms and weapons. So one of the things that we're very proactive about, we're not perfect, but we're proactive, is really trying to work to prevent bullying in our schools, really taking that DASA, the Dignity for All Students Act, seriously. When we get things wrong, we make sure that we go back to the drawing board and we revisit training, that we're really listening to our students. That's the one thing that I hope you've heard through all 3 of our school improvement plan presentations, that there's a relationship that our staff is really concentrating on, so that kids that feel like they're being targeted, kids that feel like they're being bullied, have an understanding that they do have trusted adults that they can go to, and that the trusted adults are taking that seriously. With respect to the mental health that you know is a factor, not just in schools, but in society as a whole, here are a number of symptoms that really will impact a child's behavior, impact their well-being, and impact their outlook. And these are things, again, when we work on strategies and interventions, these things are our primary considerations when our teams get together. Lastly, it's the depression with suicidal thoughts. It's something that really can be fostered by the repeated acts of bullying, and it's something where, you know, again, we take the approach here in this school district. There is no such thing as an empty threat, whether it's self-harm or harm to others. And I think that quote there, the old Buddhist proverb, beware of the man with nothing to lose, is really a cautionary tale to say, when you start to hear students express these things outwardly, or you start to recognize signs that they're off with respect to their behavior and their well-being, you know, we need to pay a little bit more attention. With respect to another primary risk factor, it's access to weapons, it's access to firearms specifically. We live in a community where hunting, fishing, those outdoor activities are a primary staple for our community. They're a primary staple for my household. However, what we were very quick to say is responsible gun ownership, responsible behaviors in the home, and then if things are brought to our attention with respect to referencing a firearm in the form of a threat, again, going back to our work with our school resource deputies or school resource officers, they will go out and take a look to make sure that there is responsible gun ownership happening in the home as well, because we never want to miss an opportunity or a red flag per se that comes to our attention. The harm prevention threat management model is something that was developed. Dr. Moralia was a part of the Parkland Commission that was as a result of the 2018 tragedy, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. So Gus Judo and Dr. David Bernstein, the Harvard psychologist, those 3 have been critically important in creating this Florida model. It is one that our Sheriff's Department promotes. It is something that our school resource officers have been trained in. It is something that we as a school district follow here. And it is a tool that's been validated by the Secret Service. So, quick overview of that. Think about it as you would multi-tiered system of supports. This is like an MTSS for threat assessment, you know. And with respect to what threat assessment is. It's a systematic, fact-based approach to identify levels of concern, and it's an ongoing process. It's repetitive. It's not just a one and done, oh, he said this or she said that. We're done, we've diagnosed, we've assessed, and we move on. We're not profiling the next school shooter. We're not planning or preparing based on a threat assessment, and it doesn't have anything to do with disciplinary process. It may result in discipline depending upon what's been said, but those two things run parallel. It's not interdependent on that. So the pathway to violence, or the escalation pathway, is this model here. It starts with a personal grievance. Well, I should back up. It doesn't have to start with a personal grievance. Most of the time, there is a personal grievance. Somebody feels they've been wrong. There's a perception that, this is ongoing, and the only way to make it right is to continue to escalate. It can be bilateral. It can bypass certain steps, but typically what they've been able to deduce is that it does start with a grievance, leads to some ideation, goes through the research, planning, preparation, the probing, and then ultimately the attack. So briefly, I'll cover each of those. Just to kind of say the student, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a student, there's a perception that they've been wronged by someone or something. With respect to the schools, oftentimes they feel like, again, I'm not heard, I'm not valued, those types of things. The ideation is the thought where they start to fantasize as to how they're going to carry out a plan when they've been wronged. The research and planning really is, they've decided that violence is the only way that they're going to have their grievance resolved, and they start to develop a list, or they start to develop ideas as to how they're going to act and carry out their plan, whether it's collecting firearms, whether it's bomb-making materials, or other dangerous resources. The preparation is they start to practice, they start to become skilled. You'll remember when we had retired FBI agent David Buds present last year, the student starts to think most amount of targets, least amount of time. They're really starting to, plan that out. And then the probing and breaching is they're going to see, can they start to assess, can they follow a routine, will they see what type of security measures are in place, what types of preventative steps have people taken to eliminate their potential threat, or they just start following routines and procedures. And then lastly, unfortunately, would be the attack. So factors that enhance the probability of the pathway to violence is a history of violence. You often hear about incidents where there's a past history where the attacker has been mean to other people, taken it out on animals, they've been exposed to violence or adverse childhood experiences. There's a history of mental health issues. There's the self-harm. There is a history of attempting suicide. There can be access to weapons. There's also problematic behavior history, whether it's dealing with law enforcement, being known to the law enforcement community, with harassing, stalking, or even threatening behavior. And then there's this lack of social, emotional, and positive supports. And a lot of times you think about the situations with, like, the Parkland shooter. That child was isolated, had a history of problematic behavior, a number of referrals, and really started to think about what they were going to do and act that out and actually forecast what they were going to do. Some things that are barriers to threat management process would be a lack of robust knowledge regarding threat management, the fatigue and desensitization, which means everything that's been brought forward is going through the threat management team. That's something that I would say to you, we're pretty well versed and skilled on limiting the difference between a problematic behavior and an actual threat. And then, too much box checking, which is you don't take the threat seriously, whether it's a matter of risk assessment, which tends to be toward the suicide, or a threat assessment, which tends to be towards others. Overcoming barriers, again, going back to the previous slide that I shared with the number of partnerships that we have and the things that we have put in place. We have a very clear team structure. We have clearly defined roles, ongoing training, open communication, a culture of shared responsibility that I said starts with a forward-thinking Board of Education and a very proactive sheriff that leads our sheriff's office. This is a quick synopsis of what that actual workflow management would look like. And again, one of the things that I would emphasize that I probably should have done when I went through each phase of the pathway is just to remind the board and the community, the attackers typically in violent incidents, they don't just snap. It's a very calculated and methodical thing. They've shown us symptoms, or they've shown us signs that are telling us this is starting to become a real serious concern for us. So I'm going to give you a quick scenario of this little thing, this student here. School's team chair received an anonymous information that Bob, a 7th grader, was found looking up images of guns in math class after finishing his assignment. The tip has also been stated that Bob's been acting weird, but nothing specific. As we start to go on, the chair spoke with Bob. He stated he was researching the internet for customizable weapons for the game Zero Caliber Loaded on virtual reality headset. He added, "I was finished with my assignment. We were allowed to study for our science test today. I studied last night, so I thought I could search with my free time." The chair reviewed Bob's records and found that last year Bob was caught playing games on his computer and when he was not supposed to. A call to Bob's mother confirms the story. She recently bought him this game as he's been excited to play it. His academic records are average, and he's been involved with several school clubs and sports teams. So if a scenario like this came into our school threat management team, they would have to determine the threat level, whether it was unfounded, low, medium, and high. In a situation like that where we're referring to Bob, it's an unfounded situation because the chair is going to do due diligence, brings it to the team, looks through it, assesses whether it's credible or not, and it's unfounded. It's not to say the person who brought those concerns forward was wrong, but when you go back and look at his history, two things have occurred. He's found looking up the guns. Bob's acting weird. He's got a history of playing video games. His academic records show that he may be aloof, but there's nothing to indicate Bob is a threat to anyone, and his story has checked out with past behavioral reports as well as confirmation from his parent. So that's a low level of concern, unrealistic or improbable. Thankfully, at this point in time, we're not out hunting zombies. There's a lack of details to suggest that that threat was actually credible. It was an anonymous source. Bob did indicate what was going on. And then, again, past practice would show he has been aloof in classes. So for us, one of the things that we use with TAP app and the CLIPS dashboard, we would log that. Even though it's unfounded, I've asked our team for any incident that comes in, whether it's unfounded, low, medium, or high, we're going to revisit that. In Bob's situation, we might assess Bob's record in 30 days. Even though it says this was unfounded, I still want a snapshot to take a look with our teams to see what's Bob done in those last 30 days. As you go throughout the hierarchy of the threat assessment, there are prescribed time periods where we would get back together and revisit, going from 90 days out, 180 days out, into a full year. And there's never a situation that's closed out until those times have elapsed, or you've handed that threat assessment off to another agency or another team. But this is a typical example under what our administrators have access to, the number of things that we would do, and again, we would log that. So a couple of quick things for our teams to consider, for our district to consider, anyone we're presenting to, is do we have a school-based threat assessment team? I'm comforted to say to you, yes, we have multiple threat assessment teams. Do we have a practical software as a service platform? I'm pleased to say to you, yes, we have those things. Do we have a good working partnership with outside organizations? I think as indicated by the 25 partnerships that we have, I'm confident we can say yes. And then do we participate in our countywide threat assessment team? I'm pleased to say yes, I am a member of the Sheriff's County threat assessment team. Questions, comments? How did I do on time? Anyone dozing off? Yes.
Just a comment, you went through it more efficiently than math. He kind of went.
He gets
went through
excited.
the presentation.
This is like
He was
his fourth
very- he was
baby.
very enthused, but you stuck to things very carefully, but you also covered some things that you didn't cover there, which is really good to hear as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is like his fourth baby, and there are times where, you know, when we had a script and we were starting a little bit later than planned because of the group before us taking time, and then you're trying to go through it, and again, consolidating 8 hours into 1 hour into, you know, 10 minutes or less, that really is something.
I think it's so beneficial for us to hear the whole thing all together. You know, we've certainly been on a journey with you with this, but to have it all put into one piece and where it's comforting is not the correct word, but it's good to know that we have this in place. I feel much more secure and hopeful that it'll never come.
Yeah,
Things will be caught beforehand.
It scares the heck out of me, quite frankly, the day and age we live in, but we're going to do everything in my power to make sure we're a very secure facility. So thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for the support that you offer our schools and our children. So moving on with my presentation, I want to talk about our budget factors for this year. That's what it looks like in my head right there, right? There's a dark mass, and then there's all these things that are bouncing around. That's probably the best way I could describe it. They agree. So there's 13 factors that I really want to highlight for us again this year to say these are all the things that are going to go into consideration when we're developing your budget for the 25-26 school year. Couple of quick things that I'm going to point out is really the state aid component, the federal aid component, because you know there's going to be a changing of the guard, and there is a different platform that typically happens whenever there's a change in the executive office, whether it's at the state level or whether it's at the federal level. A few other things that I really want to make sure we touch upon tonight, which is that there is a study being done by the Rockefeller Institute to really address foundation aid, and my hope is, and you'll see that in the abbreviated budget calendar I'm going to share in a little bit, that we have a better sense early December as to what that looks like, and that as we start going down the budget planning process, we're able to articulate to the board and the community what that actually means for us, because last year, you know, the hold harmless money was kind of put out there, taken back, and then restored. And for us, it didn't really have a great impact on us, except for the fact that it became somewhat of a shell game because the pool of money didn't change, right? It just was how it was dispersed, and I think that there was a misnomer as to, well, you got more money than we anticipated. That wasn't the case. Unfortunately, we got exactly what we anticipated and no more. So we're going to really focus on that. And then we're also going to talk about the tax levy limit, which, you know, the tax cap, it says you're going to use consumer price index or 2%, and that's going to be the lesser of the two is what you're able to use. So last year we used the 2023 rate, which was 4.12%. This year, as of right now, my trusted sources have told me that we're anticipating 2.4% for CPI, which basically means we're going to stick to the 2% tax cap. We can't exceed that. That's a law. That's really what it comes down to. And I think that that's something for us going in, knowing that the tax cap is still in play is really sound and reasonable for us to go in thinking about how will we exercise efficiencies. And I'm going to invite one of my trusted resources up, and I'm going to have Gary join me now and explain the 5-year potential outlook in 3 scenarios. This is something that I want to say thank you to him for helping out and actually, you know, compliment Mr. de Blasi on saying, you know, Gary, this is work you and Mike have worked on. Why don't you and Mike present this? Because it's not fair for him to take credit or receive blame for something that Gary and I did.
That's probably what I really think.
Yeah, I think so too. Later on, he'll dance as well. So, Gary, why don't you go ahead quickly, and then I'll step back in and kind of share.
Okay. First, can I say thank you to Mr. Pullen and to the board for bringing me back as part of the team. And I really appreciate it and hope I can add value. So this is, again, the required 5-year projection of fund balance. And what we've done is in each of the 3 scenarios, kind of provide you a very conservative approach that's typical of budget building. We want to be as conservative as possible. But really, in a nutshell, this first scenario really focuses on that, because what it really does is it's a more realistic scenario as you go along from year to year. What we're showing is revenues increasing each year by 2.5%, and then with expenditures growing at a level of 3.25%. So there's a 0.75% gap. And you can see the trends in operating surplus and our ability to replenish the reserves and our reliance on the reserves to keep us floating into the black at the end of the year. So that's really what the goal of the 5-year projection is. So we show you 3 scenarios, and the second scenario shows a larger gap. We go from 0.75 to 1.5%, and the third scenario just shows a gap of 2% in revenues and expenses. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the numbers, it makes a big difference. Even with the, if you were to compare scenario 1 to scenario 3, by the end of the 5 years, we've got a large influx from our reserves if we could do that. In reality, if we have a gap over a period of years between revenues and expenses as shown, we would be making course corrections, right? We would be right-sizing the budget. We would be doing a little downsizing. So we would deal with that gap. And so this isn't exactly realistic, but it is kind of a required document. It forces us to take a look out. And we always are looking out, not just to next year's budget, but in years going out. So are there any questions on that?
So that's scenario 1. You have it in your packet. That's the 0.75 that Gary referenced. This one here, what was the percent?
Well, it increases by twofold, so we're at 1.5% gap. And what I'm showing here is at the end of the 5 years, again, our ending fund balance is still positive.
and then this is the 2%. That's the scenario 3. Questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, so moving on, just want to give you,
Could I ask that you send us larger
Yes.
printouts so that we can peruse these on our own?
yes,
Okay.
yep, you definitely can, we can get you those, and we'll put that in my Friday update to you.
Okay, thank
Okay?
you.
So just to kind of go through, you have a more expansive budget calendar in your packet, so just want to give you that highlight tonight to let you know we do start that work right now in November. My hope is that in January, after the presentation of the Rockefeller Foundation Aid study, that I can give you and the community a better understanding of what it is. We'll start our preliminary budget presentations in late February, and then in early March, you guys will have the draft, and then in April, we're going to do the budget workshop that we've enacted the last few years, where we take a deep dive into the components of our budget, why the numbers are what they are, and what that actually means. And then there's the budget hearing in May, and then May 20th is the date of the vote for 2025. Okay? Lastly,
Before you go on, Michael,
Yes.
could I say to the board, I was going to hold this mention it during our discussion time, but as long as we're on the budget, on November 25th, the 4-county school boards meeting is on foundation aid and the Rockefeller Institute study. So if you can get to that, it would be very beneficial, I'm sure, for understanding what's going on. So let Tina know if you can go.
And Brian Fessler is going to be the one presenting, and
Yes.
he's the one that presented at NISBA, so it'll be really good information. Unfortunately, I can't be there, but I saw him. I'm sure he'll have some new stuff too.
yeah, I think between that 4-county presentation and what we'll see at rural schools, we should have a good sense of what we're looking at. So I just want to offer congratulations to this young man. You may recall Austin Anaya Hernandez. I believe this is the second year in a row that he's participating in the state competition. He's done a great job. They did a send-off for him today. He and his coach were trekking downstate for tomorrow's actual event. So very proud of this young man. You know, he's really burning the midnight oil. He was here last night for the National Honor Society induction as well. So we wish him well. Regardless of the outcome, we're very proud of him for his accomplishments and his accolades that he's received, and they're all well deserved. Lastly, I just want to recognize somebody who does so much for our district that really is a lot of the times behind the scenes. This is really exciting news because this is state recognition for Amanda Hogan. She won an award of excellence for our website, and as you see the title, an information hub for families. Last year we revamped our website and we've really cleaned it up and simplified things. That was something that when I came into the district a few years ago, we really said we need to change this thing. We found a platform, we've really tightened it up. So she was received an award for that. She also received an award, Excellence in Writing, for a piece that it says North Rose-Wolcott Middle School comes together to save one of their own. So you know that the staff did an incredible job last spring, really saving a colleague, and the steps that they took to ensure life-saving measures. That piece that she wrote was recognized. So these two awards for our school district and for Amanda specifically, they're the highest awards that the Public Relations Association can give out. So she doesn't know I'm doing that, but I will tell you, if you get a chance and you see her, congratulate her, because she really does do a phenomenal job for us. And I always love when our district is recognized on a state level for things that we're doing really, really well here. So that's it for my report.
Applause for both of them. That's grand. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Back to our agenda. The reports and correspondence, number 3. Liaisons. Leslie, do you have anything to report from the elementary?
I sure do.
Okay.
I got to go visit Cruella de Vil and a bunch of her Dalmatians on Halloween. That was really fun. The students were really trying to protect their Dalmatian from Cruella many times, so that was nice to see that the students were trying to take care of their teachers. But that was a lot of fun to go watch the parade on Halloween. I also heard that the Fall Fun Day was a big success, and Karen thinks that it needs to be done the day after Halloween forever going on, because that's a rough day in the elementary school after all the sugar. So I will advocate for that. I guess I'll be the first one to tell about this, but I think everyone's going to report that the schools are all working on their reunification drills. Everybody's going to be doing the early release for that tomorrow, right? Today's Thursday. So they've been trying to make it kid-friendly and having the teachers practice so the students really understand what's going on. The report cards have gone home. Hopefully they've all been really good report cards. I thought this was really interesting. I've never actually heard of it, so this was new for me. The Rev Theater is a community resource. They work in the Finger Lakes area, I guess, right? You're all nodding your head. So I learned something about this. They come and perform for the grade level, so they will be coming soon to the elementary school next week to do Alice in Wonderland for the 3rd grade. So that will be neat for them. The Cubby Club meeting is going to be next week, next Friday. They will be celebrating Understanding and Grateful and see which students get the awards for those. And they also had a really nice Veterans Day assembly. She said 28 veterans came and they were able to recognize them, and that was a really good event. So good things are happening. And I appreciate the presentation today. It sounds like the elementary school is really trying to focus on improving, and I appreciate hearing that from you. So thank you. Well done.
Travis, do you have anything from the middle school?
Do. The middle school updates. The 2nd Cougar Pride Assembly was held on October 18th. These assemblies continue to have a positive impact on culture at the middle school. The October staff members of the month for displaying optimism were Jessica Burgess and Alexis Ball. The next Cougar Pride Assembly will be held on November 22nd. Parent-teacher conferences seem to be a success with over 100 families in attendance. For the first time, the middle school had student-led conferences. Students took the initiative to share their successes and areas of growth directly with their parents. It was a very powerful, and they had a lot of positive feedback. Expedition of Empowerment has started, meeting with some of the 5th through 8th grade boys. This is an organization that focused on critical social emotional skills that will enable students to maintain healthy relationships and make decisions that will create more positive outcomes in their lives. They're very excited for this group to get started. The National Junior Honor Society students helped plan and lead annual Veterans Day Assembly. It was a memorable and respectful occasion that honored over 30 veterans for their service and pride in our country. A highlight was a speech given by Mr. Eric Simpson, our 5th and 6th grade technology teacher. Mr. Simpson served in the U.S. Army, the New York National Guard for almost 29 years, and served in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He displayed a flag that flew over his outpost in Afghanistan. Quarter 1 has ended with report cards to be sent home this week. The Quarter 1 assemblies will be held Tuesday, November 26th. Grades 5 through 6 will be at 12:45. and 7th and 8th will be at 1:30. The middle school is looking forward to hosting a community fair and winter concert on Wednesday, December 11th. The concert is at 6 and the community fair will be from 5:30 to 7.
John, do you have anything from the high school?
Gosh, yes. A lot of excitement when you see the administrators there. And I especially got to see the traveling cart that the principal uses to patrol the halls with. And that is very high tech, but effective. And she said the kids really gravitate to it. It's not on my sheets here, but I also got to see the round tables that are in the foyer, and I understand from the principals that the kids just, they love it. It's like being in a restaurant or a grown-up type place, you know, like you'd find in Park Avenue in Rochester or someplace. So anyhow, the parent-teacher conferences were a great success, and they had a lot of people there, a lot of students and their families, and like I just heard from a previous, the students and families had a voice in the conferences and were able to share things that they've been working on at home as well. And the exciting thing I thought was that the teachers selected 2 students to call and make a personal contact with and invite them to attend the meeting. I think that's a great idea. Veterans Day was also celebrated there, and one of the staff members served in the Air Force, and they had also a retired Air Force veteran, and he spoke about his time as a fighter pilot. And the interesting thing was students were able to engage in a question and answer session, and you know, you always wonder about those things, if they might have a question that comes up that's not quite mainstream, shall we say. And they said that they had excellent questions dealing with their service in the Air Force. So that's a really good thing. Took it seriously. Technology Day, there was a students in grades 10 through 12, well, not all students, but they'll attend a field trip to Cayuga Community College for Technology Day tomorrow, I guess. And they're interested in exploring electrical, mechanical, and media careers. And they can discover degrees and certificates that focus on these emerging technologies. And that'll be in Auburn. The 10th graders are interested in developing academic, technical, and employable skills, work-based experiences. We'll visit our Wayne County, our Williamson BOCES, Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES campus in early December to get a look at all they offer in the career and technical programs and the requirements for each program. Migrant education students traveled to SUNY Oswego on Friday, November 8th with the city BOCES. They met with other second language students attending that university, and they shared some of their stories on being accepted and attending school there. And that is a great thing, because based on an experience I had a number of years ago with a couple students who were in the migrant stream who also went to college, it really is a very important part of what they should be getting. Some very well-educated kids there. They had 5 students who were applied and accepted to sing at the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra Pops Holiday Concert at the Eastman, which is, she said, 225 applicants, and we had 5 of our students accepted and will attend that, and it'll be 145-person choir. The girls varsity tennis team won the Wayne County League Championship, which is a great thing. And we heard that we have a cross-country runner who is going to be participating in the States. He was also on Facebook today in the run around the high school through the halls, probably just warming up for him. So that was a good thing too. That was on Facebook today, and as you said, he also participated in the was tapped for the no, he wasn't tapped. He was part of the Honor Society, and he's something I would never do. He sang the national anthem in front of everyone without notes. or anything. It was great, and without a microphone, and he could be heard. It was a great experience. He's a good kid, a really good kid. I've seen him run since he was in 7th grade. Winter sports are going to start on November 18th, so that's something we can look forward to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Busy at the high school. Shelley, do you have anything from Cougar Ops?
I do not.
Not tonight.
I am so sorry, Mr. Matthews, that we did not connect, so I apologize for that.
We do know things are going on there, though, aren't
But they
they,
are.
Mr. Matthews?
Next month.
All right.
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Moving on, Linda, do you have anything for the 4 county, either the Board of Directors or the Legislative Committee?
Fort County Board of Directors is
Can you turn your sound up a little?
We're meeting on December 3rd. And this Saturday, the Legislative Committee for Fort County is meeting, and we'll be looking at the federal, and there's a lot of concerns there. I think probably, I mentioned before, I think probably Title I and Title II funding could be, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, because for rural schools, it would not be a good thing. In terms of Fort County, we're also going to be making more plans about the spring conference and about the 50th anniversary coming up in May, the celebration. So there'll be more to come on that.
Thank you. The Handbook Committee has not met. Tina had hoped to be able to give you all your new updates for your handbook tonight, but we have one more proof on that, on the changes. Those are just normal changes for a new year. They're not changes in procedures or anything like that. That would be up to the committee. Audit Committee, John, anything to report?
Yes, we had a very active meeting on November 6th, and I have done the minutes and sent them to the appropriate person. I can go through the summary of the meeting. The committee received a report on the claims audit and tax collections from Emily Mary, and there was very little to report other than the usual procedural type things. The MMS audit company, or the company who does our audit, gave a report on the financial executive summary. He also talked about the management letter, and I'll just go to that. The management letter, his verbal report was that we have very healthy reserves, and NRW has a good plan for using those reserves. As you saw, part of the 5-year plan, that we have well in hand for a lot of contingencies that might happen. We also went over the corrective action plan, the CAP, and both of these are in the consent agenda today. The corrective action plan had the school lunch fund. It's very healthy, but the balance exceeded the federal regulations. I mean, good God, it's terrible that we. But and that the surplus has been used for many different things in the schools, and especially in the lunchrooms. And I'm sure the kids then are benefiting from those improvements. And also, now that the federal government has seen the light and not doing it every 3 months, but they're going to do it every 6 months. So, also our bid quoting procedures, there were 2 transactions that did not follow procedure for the correct number of quotes. It was a minor detail, but there is a policy dealing with that. Closing procedures, closing the books, because there was a change in direction at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, the item was not done on a timely, as it usually is, and it's done now. Then we had the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act, and that has to do with money that was provided by the federal government when COVID hit the whole country. As I remember way back, we were very I think, intelligent about the usage of it, and they made a point in the meeting that we used it for things that were not staff directed or programmed. So when the money decreased, like it's gone to zero now, it just ended, we don't have to reduce staff, nor do we have to get rid of any programs that benefited the kids. We did things like homeless student costs, after-school programs, and summer school programs. So we did, I think, an exceptional job with that. So we have those 2 items in the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And we appreciate all that our superintendent and our business people, Gary, and that you've done to make that all happen. That's a very good report. There's sometimes you'll read in the newspaper where schools are really dinged by an audit, and when you have good people running the ship, it doesn't happen. So we appreciate that here. Travis, do you have anything to report on the District Safety Committee?
Just one thing to add to what Leslie said about the North Rose Elementary, that all the buildings and departments have been going over their roles and practicing their procedures for the reunification plan and early release drill that will happen tomorrow. Each building will be releasing staff and students early. The middle school will be released at 12:45, the high school at 1, and the elementary school at 1:45. And that's it.
Thank you. Tina, do you have anything for Personnel and Negotiations Committee?
There's a number of conversations going on. We're not at this point ready to report out, but we're an active committee.
And the Superintendent's Annual Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee?
Yes.
That you're chair of?
The committee met, and the 3 of us met. We reviewed a variety of evaluation tools. We determined at that time that we thought the Super Eval tool was a good option. We had discussed with other districts how they've used it, how it's been beneficial to them. So we requested that one of the developers came out, met with us as a whole group. At the conclusion of that meeting, we felt very favorable about moving forward using the Super Eval system, provided that we could all agree at this point. Formalize that.
Are you all in, we saw the presentation.
Yes.
Are you positive people on moving forward with that system? Our superintendent has said he's in full agreement with that as well. I think then we can move forward.
Okay, then we're set.
We have consensus.
So at this point, that committee will be...
In that case, that committee is now over. So I thank the ad hoc committee for all the work.
Very nice way of putting it.
You've achieved your goal, and you are finished.
We're done for.
You're done.
Okay,
so
perfect.
thank you for adding that extra work to your load here. If there should be some need with implementation of that or any issues, we would revive that committee if necessary. But at this point, it looks like you've done your job. So thank you very much. The next one is the Communications Ad Hoc Committee. Tina?
Okay. Again, we met on 2 separate occasions. We discussed the options and ideas of how to best showcase what we as a board do. In addition to these meetings, we really felt that the community we should be more transparent with the community in terms of some of the extra activities that we do. We weren't sure how best to do that. We came up with some ideas, but it was suggested that we meet with Amanda Hogan. So we followed up and had a second meeting with her, and she is totally an asset. Wow, I mean, we sat there, everything we suggested, she said, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. We kept saying, okay, okay. She's just exceptional. Had great ideas for us. So at this point, again, the board would all have to agree, but we kind of felt that one of the best options, we already have a digital newsletter, of which the board does not have a section on. So we felt that that might be a good option for us. We don't have a section on the website. And again, Amanda said, you know, that's something that she could handle for us as long as we gave her the information. And then the newsletters that currently go out 4 times a year. She's anticipating that go out 6 times in the future. And again, she felt that that was something that we would just give her the information and she would promote that for us. It's not so much that we're thinking we want credit, but we think the community should be aware of what they've elected us to do and how we're following through with that. So again, we just need to be in agreement.
So you've suggested 3 things to move forward with. Again, I'm looking for consensus. Do I see nods with that?
We will need to decide, though, on that, whether that's going to become a committee that needs to continue, because we have to get that information
All
to
right.
Amanda.
I think at this point, you still have work to do. It's now that you have the consensus from the board to see that it all gets put in place. And then I think once it's in place, maybe you will recommend that it become one of our regular standing committees, which we can deal with at that time.
Good.
Wonderful. Good work. Thank you. Policy Committee. Shelley?
We have 7 policies that are on the agenda for today. I'm hoping that everyone looked at those. And actually, 6 of them we're recommending that we delete. As we've been reviewing our policies, we've really recognized that many of the policies are more operational in function and not really needing to be policies that a Board of Education would be responsible for. So you will probably see future recommendations for deletion of certain policies. So if there's any questions for the ones that we have recommended?
So are you saying the ones that you've recommended be deleted are those type of policies that are...
That is correct.
Procedural?
Correct. But I predict you're going to see more that we have in the policy book that are more procedural than what a Board of Education should be responsible for.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Good work.
Nice.
John?
I'd like to ask who wrote 6121, the sexual harassment? Yeah. Oh, here, one. Thank you. I didn't have any questions about it, but sometimes we have our attorney look at them as well.
That happened. Both happened.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
I think having the our own attorney check that is part of our policy from past years, so it will happen. Any other questions for Shelley? Okay, good. Thank you, Shelley. That completes the reports and correspondence. Tina, do we have anyone signed up for public access? No. None tonight. All right. We will move on then to the next item is the consent agenda, and before we move to that, the board needs to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing employment history of specific employees. A motion, please. Leslie and Shelley. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. We will be leaving. We won't be gone too long. We'll be right back. So enjoy yourselves while we're gone. All right, we are back, and we are back in general session. We are, we're at the consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. It's only what's on your agenda right now. I didn't, again, Travis and Shelley. Discussion. All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Motion is carried. At this time, I would like to add to the agenda these green sheets that you've just received. First of all, I need a motion to approve adding to the agenda. Tina and Leslie, discussion? All in favor of amending our agenda? Motion is carried. All right. I would entertain a motion, please, to add the green sheets to, no, we've done that. Okay. All right, so now we do the resolutions. Do I do them together, Tina, or can I do them together? All right. The two additions to the agenda are, number one, a letter of resignation from Todd Henry, and two, to award a bid for the elementary auditorium painting, which is 2025.01. So a motion, please, to approve these two resolutions. Linda and John. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We move now to page 5 or 6. 6 on the agenda, which is board member requests, comments, and discussion. And Tina, I have you scheduled here to speak to the board on consolidated sports. Would that be correct?
Yes.
All right.
I know we've been approached by a couple of different districts, and with the new reorganization concept coming at us pretty quickly, I'd like to request that we get some additional information. We've made decisions and we've never really been sure. I mean, we knew what we were doing, but at this point, it sounds like it's going to be more of a formal process, and I think the more information we have, the better off we'll be. And some of the concerns that I've had is it's not just the costs or the benefits, but I know there's a lot of hidden costs, because in discussing it informally with people, transportation to and from, what else it's going to mean to us, the positive and the negatives. I just think we need more information. Anybody else have anything to add?
I would back you up with that. I think we need to have a wider umbrella of information. As you said, it's just not cost. It has to do with psychological. It has to do with neighboring districts, parents' input, coaches. It's a big topic. And with declining enrollments throughout the whole state, I think it's becoming more and more important.
So I'm hearing, besides there are the benefits for the students, but there are consequences that we have to realize and accept as both. Mr. Pullen, would you recommend? What would your recommendation be?
I think there's a few more board members that have comments, so I'll wait and then I'll give you an idea of what I think.
Okay, all right.
Well, the one question that I have right now is it's consolidation, or is it just for lack of a better word, trading. So for students in some districts that don't have a certain sport, that they want to come here. And if we have students that want to play a different sport, they want to go there. I guess I wasn't hearing right yet that it's about consolidation, or, you know, that we would, because that topic came up 3 years ago. And I think then we really need to be looking at our numbers and our future numbers from elementary, how many students are participating in the sports that we currently have available to them. So, you know, I think, and it may be both, but I think it is going to be a broader topic in looking at all of our numbers.
Linda, do you have something?
Well, it makes me think of things that we've done for academics and having districts do combinations, and sometimes maybe one sport might be full team in one district and then another sport might be full team in another. You know, I think it's something that's going to create a lot of negotiating in terms of who covers what and busing and everything else. I don't think it's going to be an easy go. I think we do need to look into a lot of the details.
Travis,
I think we need to look at what sports we're talking about. Some we're heavy in, some we're not. Is it going to be something we make with one school or multiple schools? We need to know what schools are asking. If they're willing, should we find out how many kids we would be interested in playing their sports? I mean, if it's kids going to Clyde to play football, how many kids would want to go there to play football? And is their district ready for 30 kids if 30 kids want to go? I think we need to know more about the particulars of what's being asked of us too.
Yeah, I think it's more than just, you know, kids going back and forth. There's a substantial cost, including what Section 5 ends up forcing us to be with our teams, the effect that its rules are. So, yeah.
Some of the research I was doing too was indicating that it's not going to be just limited to sports. It could lead into some of our arts as well, you know, school plays and some of that too. So we need a pretty comprehensive idea of where we're going with this.
So what are specifics we have right now? I guess Mr. Pullen can probably speak to that shortly, but what are we actually looking at, and what's the timeline? How soon do we need to have a decision for XYZ sport, so that if this comprehensive, it'll miss a sports season or two if it takes that long to make this decision. So what are we looking at here?
So that's the issue, right? So we've been approached by districts in the past, you know, for a variety of sports, for a variety of reasons, and, you know, it's been indicated that this topic was brought up a few years ago, and then you recall Mark presented to our group last year, and then nothing happened. So at this point in time, my feeling is, you know, we have to weigh out the regionalization and whether that's going to become a state mandate. What I've heard you talk about is the benefit and cost, come up with a cost-benefit analysis. Sounds like a survey to see what actually students are interested in and whether it's viable or not. And then intermunicipal agreement would have to occur at some point in time, because just use transportation, for example. If we're going to share student athletes with one district, there's a cost for both districts transporting back and forth. And people will say all the time, well, parents are willing to drive. Well, the problem is that when they're signed up to participate in an interscholastic event, we're responsible for transporting them. You know, so the cost of 6 to 7 days a week, transportation, salary and benefits, those are things that are hidden right now. The interest is clearly there in some areas, but we do have to see the cost benefit analysis financially, participation wise, all of that. So for our purposes right now, I would recommend this year we stay the course based on what we've done, which is grow our own. The board's been very proactive with supporting 2 modified teams for girls and boys basketball. We have co-ed swimming, we have 2 wrestling teams, things of that nature. Our modified soccer numbers were healthy, our JV and varsity numbers were healthy. So I'm going to work with Mark, and I think that an appropriate time frame would be probably January, maybe February, to come back and report out on some of those findings. And I'll work with the business office to see what makes sense, because I know, again, it sounds great and it makes a lot of sense some of the time, but I don't want to set us down a pathway we're going to ultimately cost our taxpayers money and be short-sighted with a decision. And simultaneously, I do think we need to pay attention to the regionalization model that is going to be pushed. And I do believe on the east end of the county, people have to remember we're the 4th largest district in Wayne County. I would venture to guess we will be a hub for a lot of things academically, and possibly athletically and arts and music in the future, but we're not there right now. So I think let's take a slow and cautious approach, be very methodical, vet it in such a way that we're getting good use out of our district resources, and then we present something to you in the spring or late winter and let you decide as to what you want to do as the next step.
So we're all agreed that that's the thing to do. And we have consensus then. Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Do you have anything else tonight, Tina? You've had quite a bit.
Just a minute. No, I don't.
You could make something up. We'd be okay with that. All right. Does anyone else have anything to add to board member discussion, comments or discussion requests? All right. Then does anyone have good news? We've heard a lot of good news with our, John does.
Well, as I said, we had 3 things on Facebook today, or recently, with cross country and the Honor Society, as well as the 7th and 8th grade junior high all county. I think 9 students are going to that. And that was listed too. That was a picture of them. So that's all good.
Yes, and there were 4 board members at the induction ceremony for the National Honor Society last night, and I want you to know that 2 people in particular said they really appreciate that the board comes to all these things, and I think it is, those of you who were able to attend, it was a very well done induction ceremony, and Mr. Pullen spoke, and it was well done. Some good students there. There was, 21 students that were inducted. It was a big group, and I thought, that's marvelous. That means in that whole class, that's a lot of kids that have 90% grade average. It's just great for one.
2 classes, juniors and seniors.
For the 2. All right, yeah, okay. But still, they were mostly juniors being inducted. All right. Then that completes our agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please? Tina and Shelley, any discussion? All in favor?